The wind howled through the darkened streets of the French Quarter, New Orleans, like a chilling whisper from the dead. At the heart of this darkness stood the LaLaurie Mansion, a grim scar in the city's soul, where every brick seemed soaked in blood and pain that could never be erased. Its old walls concealed a horrifying history, a story so sinister that even the bravest souls dared not speak of it under the pale glow of the moon. This was no mere house, it was a living tomb, where the echoes of stifled screams still lingered in the air, and the darkness never slept. In the early 19th century, the mansion belonged to Madame Delphine LaLaurie, a woman whose sweet, social smile masked a heart as black as night. Beneath her noble facade lurked a monster in human form, a sadist who delighted in the torture of the unfortunate slaves under her control. In 1834, a fire erupted, not to cleanse, but to reveal an unthinkable horror. Chained, mutilated bodies, twisted beyond recognition, were discovered in the locked attic. Their final cries seemed to seep into the walls, cursing the mansion for eternity. It is said that since that day, the souls of the victims have never left. They remain trapped, screaming in silence, waiting for someone foolish enough to step inside. Decades passed, and the mansion stood as a grim warning, a ghost among the living, until 2007, when an unsuspecting man walked straight into its nightmare, Nicolas Cage. The Hollywood star, driven by a morbid curiosity and a fascination with the bizarre, purchased the house. He called it a piece of history, the most haunted house in America, as if it were merely another peculiar trinket in his collection. But what he didn't know was that when the grand doors closed behind him, he had locked himself inside a waking nightmare. From the very first night, the signs were there, heavy footsteps echoed through empty hallways, as if someone or something was stalking him. Chilling whispers slithered down the grand staircase, wrapping around him like an unseen hand. Then came the icy patches spreading through the rooms, as though the breath of death itself brushed against his skin. But the most terrifying moment came on one fateful night. Cage awoke in the dead of night, cold sweat dripping down his forehead, as a faint, muffled sobbing pulled him from sleep. Following the sound, his heartbeat pounded in his chest, leading him to the attic, the very place that had once been Madame LaLaurie's chamber of horrors. The flashlight in his trembling hand flickered, casting weak beams into the darkness, and then he saw them, shadowy figures standing still, their empty eyes locked onto his every move. They did not speak. They did not move. But their presence was a deathly warning. Even Cage's guests were not spared from the nightmare. They spoke of unseen hands tugging at their clothes, tearing away their peace. One housekeeper quit in sheer terror after witnessing a woman in a black dress standing by the window, her face ghostly pale, her eyes hollow and sunken, a figure identical to Madame LaLaurie herself, as if she had never truly left. The mansion was not just a home, it was a living entity, a hungry monster, and Nicolas Cage, no matter how talented or famous, was merely its next prey. He had stepped inside, but would he ever walk out whole? The darkness within the LaLaurie Mansion did more than swallow the light, it gnawed at the mind, suffocating the will of anyone who dared stay too long. Nicolas Cage, who had once stepped inside with a confident smile and an arrogant curiosity, now felt the true cost of his recklessness. The house did not forgive, nor did it forget, and it began tightening its invisible grip around him like a starving serpent coiling around its prey. Just months after setting foot inside, Cage's life began to unravel, not by mere misfortune, but as if a cold, relentless curse had risen from the past. His finances crumbled, massive debts emerged from the shadows, pulling him into an abyss. His once brilliant Hollywood career flickered like a candle in the icy wind, major roles slipping through his fingers, leaving him to face the doubtful gazes of the outside world. The people of New Orleans, long accustomed to the taste of the supernatural in the air, whispered behind closed doors, "It's the LaLaurie curse. She doesn't like outsiders trespassing on her domain." They believed the mansion held more than just the souls of its unfortunate victims, it carried the wrath of Madame LaLaurie herself, a spirit that never rested, never forgave. Cage, despite maintaining his hardened exterior, could not deny the cracks forming within him. By 2009, the house was seized, slipping from his grasp like a shattered dream. He left, abandoning the blood-stained walls and the stories he publicly dismissed. But those close to him told a different tale. Cage had sworn never to return, his voice trembling whenever he spoke of the place, as if merely saying the name LaLaurie could summon the darkness he had left behind. The house did not rest after Cage's departure. It lived, it breathed, and it continued to spread its terror. The new owners, shrouded in secrecy, refused to speak of what lurked within, but darkness could never be hidden forever. Locals spoke of moonless nights when faint cries seeped through the tightly shut windows, drifting through the air like pleas for salvation from the dead. Passers-by, even those who dared only a glance, swore they saw shadowy figures standing silently behind the glass, their lifeless eyes watching every step. The house seemed to mock their curiosity, luring them closer only to devour them, as it had done to so many before. Then, in 2023, the LaLaurie Mansion revealed a new, terrifying secret, one far more disturbing than anyone had imagined. Workers hired to renovate the house entered with skepticism, unaware that they were about to witness a nightmare unfold before their very eyes. Their tools vanished without a trace, snatched away by unseen hands lurking in the darkness. Icy gusts, without an identifiable source, swept through sealed rooms, carrying the scent of blood and burned flesh, a haunting reminder of the fire that once exposed Madame LaLaurie's atrocities. But the most horrifying discovery came when they tore up the rotting wooden floors of an upstairs chamber. There, buried beneath the shadows, lay a small doll made of bone and coarse fabric, its surface covered in strange markings, red as dried blood. Experts whispered of a gree-gree, a voodoo charm, possibly a plea for protection, or worse, a curse meant to summon something from the abyss. After that discovery, the workers fled, refusing to return no matter the price. They spoke of endless whispers, murmuring from the very walls like a deathly hymn in a language no one could comprehend. One swore he saw a small, ghostly figure, a pale child, gliding through the rooms with an unnatural speed. The house seemed to be awakening, its curse no longer bound to Cage alone but spreading, planting seeds of terror in all who dared approach. And while Cage tried to move on, those who knew him claimed he remained haunted, plagued by nightmares of the attic, where the darkness coiled around him, never letting go. The LaLaurie Mansion had taken more than Cage's fortune and fame, it had stolen a piece of his soul. And it was still hungry for more. Night fell over New Orleans like a pitch-black veil, and the LaLaurie Mansion stood there, silent yet defiant, like a beast lying in wait for its prey. In 2024, as the sun disappeared, the darkness within the house was no longer a whisper, it had become the roar of an ancient entity, awakened from its slumber. Dr. Evelyn Marx, a paranormal investigator with the cold heart of a skeptic, stepped inside with her team, armed with state-of-the-art equipment and the determination to tear apart LaLaurie's secrets. But she did not know that the house had been waiting for her, had chosen her as the next piece in its endless cycle of horror. From the very first moment, the air inside was thick as dried blood, pressing against their chests. In the grand hall, where dust-covered chandeliers loomed overhead, footsteps echoed down the corridor, slow, deliberate, like a predator stalking its prey. Dr. Marx called out, but only silence replied, accompanied by the acrid stench of burnt wood and rotting flesh. Thermal cameras caught fleeting figures moving in the attic, though the room was empty. Audio recorders picked up agonized moans, growing louder as they neared the staircase leading to what was once Madame LaLaurie's slaughterhouse. Then, in a moment of chilling horror, Sam, the youngest member of the team, froze, his face pale as death, whispering, "She's calling me." Before anyone could stop him, he ascended the attic stairs, his legs moving stiffly, as if controlled by invisible strings. The attic door slammed shut with a deafening crash, shaking the entire house, trapping him inside for 10 agonizing minutes. When they finally broke down the door, they found Sam standing motionless in the center of the room, muttering the same phrase over and over, "They're still here." Footage from his body camera revealed a horrifying truth: shadowy figures surrounded him, whispering his name, "Samuel, Samuel," in raspy voices from beyond the grave. Then, a blackened hand reached out from the void, inviting him to stay forever. Dr. Marx, shaken but undeterred, dug into history and uncovered a long-forgotten name: Samuel, a 14-year-old boy who had vanished inside the mansion in 1833. Was the house reliving its past, forcing the living into the roles of the dead? Or was something far darker awakening? Seeking answers, she turned to Victor Beaumont, an expert in arcane symbols, who revealed a chilling truth: the sigils within the house did not merely trap spirits, they were a gateway to an ancient entity that Madame LaLaurie had tried to summon in exchange for immortality. That entity, born from pain and cruelty, had grown stronger over the centuries, feeding on trapped souls and the fear of the living. Now, with the sigil disturbed, the gateway was opening wider and the entity was furious. Marx and Beaumont returned to the mansion, armed with ancient texts and fragile courage. The house groaned like a living thing, its walls trembling, the air heavy with the metallic scent of fresh blood. They found a hidden chamber on the second floor, where the sigil pulsed beneath the dust, beating like the heart of a monster. But before they could act, the darkness surged. A tall, gaunt figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing like embers, its voice a guttural growl, "You dare interfere?" Beaumont chanted an incantation, but the entity only laughed, a sound so deep it shook the very foundations of the house. The sigil blazed, a surge of dark energy hurling them to the ground. Marx, her heart hammering, realized they had only one chance to reverse the ritual and seal the entity forever. With a shard of broken glass, she traced over the sigil, her blood dripping onto the floor, mixing with the trembling incantation on her lips. The house fought back, walls cracked, the ceiling shuddered, and the entity roared in fury. Then, in a blinding flash, the sigil shattered, and the entity was pulled back into the abyss, leaving behind an eerie, deathly silence. As Marx and Beaumont stepped outside, the house remained still, but its eyes, those darkened windows, watched them. "Is it over?" Marx whispered. Beaumont shook his head, "Only for now. The house never forgets." The entity may have been sealed, but the souls of its victims remained trapped, and the LaLaurie Mansion, with its insatiable cruelty, still waited. Some say the entity was never truly destroyed, it was merely waiting, patient, hungry, ready to rise when the next unfortunate soul dared to cross its threshold. For Dr. Marx, the nightmare was far from over. The darkness had followed her, whispering in her dreams, as if the house had marked her as its own, forever.